Hello Reddit readers, today we have guys on the timeline who have seen the fastest dismissals. I will not detain you anymore. Like and subscribe to the channel of pleasant viewing. Story 1 from user Punk Walrus. We had a hiring agency pulling a bait and switch, C, 1999-2000. They figured the company couldn't tell one Indian guy from another, and apparently they were correct up to a point. They had a dummy interviewer who might have been related to the owner. I don't know, dressed well, handsome, well, spoken thin man who knew his shit. So we hired him. The guy who showed up and he had his ID was completely a different guy. Squat Acne guard, wore a linen shirt, khakis and sandals. Barely spoke English because of how big our company was. He showed up for orientation on another campus, brought a large hoagie sub that smelled like vinegar and paprika, propped his dirty, crusty bare feet on the chair in front of him during orientation, videos eating the sandwich, slapped the ass of the head of HR as he passed her. In the hallway was gone for a few hours in the bathroom, where apparently he smoked cigarettes. So HR called us to confirm some things, but it was kind of a fishing expedition of, "Are you sure you hired this guy?" Quickly, we said no. He was this tall, skinny guy. HR is a bit slow and said that they'd forgive his transgression for today, but we needed to teach him basic American culture or something. I think they were in shock. Guy did not show up for work the next day. Then, the day after that, showed up to the wrong office. In that time, we found out he was not a US citizen and on a worker's visa or something, which immediately disqualified him for two reasons. One, his proxy lied about this, and two, US citizenship was a requirement. But now, he had a badge to enter our offices and such, and so to get that withheld was another process that required 48 hours notice. But working with building security, we managed to expedite it on day 4. He was given some training manual and put in a small meeting room. I got to spend some time with him, but I didn't get much out of him because, again, didn't speak much English. He exuded sexual predator creep and was wearing a stained t-shirt with our logo on it. A freebie new hires are given, I visually confirmed. This is not the guy we interviewed with. He was asked to leave after we got his badge revoked, and he left without much fuss. Turned out the company had been fooled by 2 other temps this way by this hiring agency, although they weren't giving any issues. So I am not sure if they got let go or not. HR dropped that hiring agency. Story 2 from user Grumbles Kant 2 Kusan Internet. I had one of the dirtiest jobs in the world in the late 90s. Officially, it was an industrial cleaning company, but it was really the first circle of hell. It was called Onyx. Does your steel mill have a 2-foot thick coating of metal shavings on its rafters above an active iron smelter, like something out of Terminator 2? Need some poor schmuck with no real training to lug a bulky, heavy vacuum hose up there to suck the shavings all up because it's starting to weigh your roof down too much. Is it about 3 stories above? An open smelter that's got glowing red magma in it. Well, glad you called the company. I used to work for, so I could get paid $9 an hour to risk my life to do it for you. Imagine crawling around on a 2-foot wide beam while fighting with a heavy and awkward hose with not so much as a safety rope above a certain agonizing death. And now your hands are sweating so bad they're slipping around in your gloves. That wasn't the day someone got fired on their first day. And I quit. That day was spent after the day before working a 24-hour shift at Baltimore Resco, the city's trash-burning plant, where every disgusting thing from every abominable dumpster in Baltimore ended up to be burned. To heat an 8-story boiler to generate electricity fleets of trash trucks all day and night, dumping their disgusting loads out onto what was known then as the Kill a Massive concrete slab floor as big as a football field, where a giant megalithic bulldozer pushed it into a giant machine that ground it up and sent it to be burned. Except the kill hadn't been used the day before, or today, because today we got to clean it me. And 3 other unlucky assholes from our company had to systematically walk the entire kill in a grid pattern to pressure wash up a 1/2 foot of clay like trash slime that had fossilized to the concrete over time under the enormous weight of the massive dozer treads. Even through our masks, the smell was indescribably awful. The ground had the feeling of ice with slime on top. We had to fight hard to keep our footing, which is why we were doing the cleaning to do this. We were using incredibly powerful pressure washers called shotguns due to their explosive concussive power. I had just been using them the day before on my hellish shift inside that 8-story boiler that had been cooling for a week. Prior, the shotguns could blow your foot clean off, as shown in the training video. We had watched, it could also blow off the concrete, like buildup of burnt trash off of the hot water pipes inside the boiler, which I'd done for 24 years straight. The day before cleaning the kill, the worst part was the rats. And the 9 an hour, the mountains of trash building up around the now empty kill had a city's worth of rats running around in it, sometimes as trucks disgorged more trash on top of them from ramps above. It would cause a flurry of scared rats out from under and onto the kill. Sometimes, in their fear, they'd run right at you groups. At a time, we were instructed to blow them back with the shotguns. They would be blown apart in a jet of fur blood and dirty water. It was the only way to keep them off you, if you lost your footing and went down to their level. Well, keep your footing after 11 hours of that? I got to go back to a shitty motel room where a new guy just hired. That day was supposed to be going back to fill in. When I opened my motel room door, I see a very overweight, hairy drunk guy standing at the foot of my bed, totally naked. He's clearly drunk as shit, swaying back and forth as he pisses all over my bed and suitcase. I shut the door, told my boss in the truck that I quit, and had to wait 12 hours for a ride back home. And the guy was fired for spending his first night before work getting blackout drunk in the shared hotel room. Story 3 from user Drakitamon. New hire orientation hadn't even started. Yet like 5 minutes to go time. We let people into the training room 15 minutes early. If they want 7 new employees. Big monster of a dude. 66-ish, $380 Bs, played lineman in college. Like 15 years previously, walks up to one of the new girls while she is drinking water at the fountain and whips it out, dropping it right next to her mouth and on the fountain. Mouth shield. Like 2 inches away from her mouth. Says when you're done with that, why don't you suck on this, right? As I walked into the hallway, needless to say he didn't understand why he was fired or arrested when it was all caught on surveillance with audio. And he admitted to it. He told me and the cop it wasn't a big deal, and if she didn't want to, she just wouldn't. It was how. He always picked up girls and had worked for him for 20 years at multiple places. He even said at his last job that his manager female did it for him from his first day until her manager caught them in her office 5 years later. Every day when he bailed out of jail. A week later, he came by and asked when he could start, and then got super aggressive and angry when I again let him know he was fired and now trespassed. And TP not come back, the female ended up stalking her ex-husband and kept sneaking away from work on her breaks. But then, not getting back in time. Like 45 minutes to 15 hours late. Getting back from a 15-min break. She didn't even make it 6 months, fired her, because she snuck a GPS tracker from our inventory into her ex's car. She had literally gotten a job at a mechanic shop. For just that reason, when I was exit interviewing her, the same cop arrested her as she was leaving the termination meeting, because I had charges for the theft of equipment and time card, and her ex had stalking charges. Back then, these fleet trackers were like 4K, so it was a felony before anyone goes ballistic. On time card theft, I always paid my people for, everything had to stay 5 minutes late. Put in for 15 min, get a call, went off. Put in for 15 min, big boss asked you to stay late. Put in for it in 15 min, increments. No, working for free at all. Story 4 from user Gon Chancognito. Guy got hired on as a cleaner. Previously worked at a frozen food storage facility and boasted how he made $34 an hour. There he was a terrible cleaner and walked around saying how all the cleaners, including himself, should be paid less than minimum wage. He destroyed our auto scrubber, took all the power supply cords for the computers, including membership where people use a computer to scan in, because he wanted more people working rather than playing on Facebook's social media. He locked out the elevator when he wasn't using it. So kids wouldn't go into the basement, which would be a nice thought. But there's one elevator key, and that elevator is used to go to the gym, portion of the facility. He would often take the key home, so no one would lose it. He would also forget it on his other work pants for the week. He did that. He was actually assaulted at his previous workplace many times. Some of sexual nature. I told him to bring this up to his union rep from his previous job, as he had just quit due to harassment after helping him build up a very small case, and he was actually hired back on pretty quickly, about a month after starting at my workplace. He couldn't stand working with one of our other cleaners, who is actually one of the nicest, hardworking people I've ever met. Opposite of this guy who got fired. So he quit a week before his notice. He goes back to the other job he was working. He was also a cleaner there, but decided to use a forklift to move his cleaning cart chemicals. He couldn't see while driving and didn't notice a door to refrigeration unit was open. He drove right into it, ripped it off, and kept going. His manager asked him what was happening. Buddy didn't like his tone and assaulted him multi-times, stating payback. So he got fired from his old job. 3 hours after being rehired, came back to our gym, asking for his job back. We didn't take him to told Dr. incompetent worker. Quit our workplace and got fired from his old workplace in less than half a shift. Story 5 from user late stage dadaism. Not my coworker. But I feel like Harlan Ellison's story is in the spirit of this thread, and I'm not sure how many people know the story. The gist of it is that Harlan managed to get fired from Disney after a total of 4 hours on his first day. Probably by Roy Disney himself. You can read the whole story here on Harlan Ellison's website under the Labor Relations section. But I'll let Harlan tell the juiciest bit. So we went to the commissary and shoved in around the writer's table. What I did not know was that the writer's table was right behind the producer's banquette. That was my first big mistake. As it turned out, it was also my last big mistake. What fun sitting there with intellectual companions cutting up touches and laughing at the drolleries. Born again, the Algonquin Round Table would beyond compare, and naturally, as the youngest member of the group, striving to make my mark as worthy of their camaraderie. Their respect? I suggested a droll, witty, lunchtime conceit. 2 things you must know first. I do a terrific Mickey Mouse imitation. Absolutely phonographically perfect. If the publishers of this book had the money, they ought to bind in a record. One of those little plastic jobbies, so you could hear my spectacular Mickey imitation. When I tell this anecdote in person, it really enhances a lot, but just pretend you can hear it. Okay. The second thing you need to know is that the producer's banquet had filled up with Roy Disney and the other heads of the studio behind me. A fact of which I was unaware. A fact no one bothered to impart at the top of my voice. I suggested, hey, listen, what a kick. Why don't we do a porn? Disney flick. Everyone smiled. It'll be terrific, I said loudly. I mean, everyone knows, for instance, that Tinkerbell does it. What they don't know is how she does it. They all looked at me expectantly. She flies up the head of the penis and flaps her wings like crazy. I said proud as hell of myself at this bit of fantasy. Everyone chuckled. I went on oblivious to the sudden hush all around me in the commissary. I'll be Mickey and it'll be the director, John. You do a good Donald, so you can be the male porn lead, sort of a duck style, Harry Reams. Mary, you can be Minnie the female lead, and Albert. You can be Goofy, and Goofy, of course, is the producer. Their smiles were frozen the way the smiles of bit players get frozen when they see the monster creeping up behind the hero in a horror flick. Hey gang, I squeaked in my terrifically accurate Mickey voice. Everybody ready to shoot the ultimate Disney flick, the film that rips the lid off the goody two, shoes hypocrisy that lies sweltering beneath the surface of graded true-life adventures. Okay, you guys, let's get that handheld Aeroflex right down there between Minnie's legs. I want to see close-ups of quivering labia, a silence as deep as that at the bottom of the Cayman Trench. I went on oblivious, carried along by my enthusiasm in Donald's quack. I said, "Goddamn son of a bitch Pluto. Get out of there, you're steaming up the lens as Goofy in the dumbest voice possible." I said, "Yuck, yuck, yuck." Hey fellas, I'm a highly paid, extremely inept producer person. Can I play too, as Mickey off, Goofy off, get those 7 dwarfs in here? I don't care. If they don't want to gangbang a mouse, tell them they're under contract, and for Christ's sakes, Minnie, will you take off those damn shoes? The meal came. Everyone addressed their plates like inmates of the Gulag Archipelago. When lunch was over, everyone vanished very quickly. I was confused, but felt good. What a nice little shtick I'd invented, wished they'd joined in. Oh well, went back to my office. Noticed first that my name had been wiped out. In the parking slot upstairs, the secretary and her paperback were gone. On my desk, 12 sharpened 2 Dixon Ticonderoga pencils and a pink slip. I had been fired after working for the Disney Empire for a total of 4 hours, including lunch. The lessons here cannot be avoided. Big business is humorless, and at Disney. Nobody with the mouse. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and write comments. See you later.